Here we go. Hello.
Good evening. Hello. Good evening. Good evening and Happy New Year. My name is Scott Mance, and what did you think of September 5? What a powerful, powerful film. I am very honored and excited to moderate tonight's conversation about the making of this extraordinary movie. Please welcome to the stage producer Philipp Trauer. Please welcome screenwriter Moritz. Please welcome actor Chaplin. Please welcome actor Leonie Benesch. Please welcome actor Magaro. So I got to see this movie at the Telluride Film Festival. Really a true discovery at Telluride. I remember the date was September 1st. And I just absolutely fell in love with this movie, and I just would love to hear more. It's like, how did this come about? What was your inspiration for the particular point of view that you had in telling the story of September 5?
Yeah, first of all, I have to say that this is amazing. I mean, being here with you guys in that room, this is like really overwhelming. The whole journey of that movie is like unbelievable, and we're very happy to be here. So thank you very much for coming. Yeah, we started like Philipp and Thomas Webke, the other producer, and Tim approached me with that idea to make a project about that day, like September 5, and we started researching like very different angles. And then during that research, we had a moment where we were digging deeper into the media aspect, like the role the media played that day. And we met Jeffrey Mason, like the real Jeffrey Mason, for an interview, like as an eyewitness. And we were all thinking like we were talking to a source, but then he took us through his day, through his 22 hours, and then we realized it's not a source, this is probably the source. This is like probably the movie we want to tell.
So in terms of the point of view, I mean, you spend like 85% of the film in one room, in this in a control room, which is such a unique point of view that makes the movie really feel like a pressure cooker. Tim Feldbaum, who was supposed to be here, his flight got delayed, but it's okay, we got a great panel. So I wonder if you could just talk about the challenges in creating that set, and that the actors would really be sort of working in real time on that set.
Well, I think it was important to Tim to create a set that really feels as authentic as possible. So first of all, we had a small soundstage, and we built it, the set door to door. So when John enters the door in the beginning, it's the actual door to the soundstage. And then inside, of course, in the control room, Tim wanted to have the monitors all working, the buttons working, and it was very important to him not to have like blue screens, but to actually show the footage on the monitor so the actors can interact with it. And I think that was a crucial part and reason why this feels authentic and like.
You know, sometimes when actors are playing real characters who are still with us, they choose to not interview the actors that the characters that they're playing. But was that the case with you, John? Did you talk to?
Yeah, I did quite a bit. I think that's straight. I'm an actor who, like, if I can talk to somebody, I'll talk to them, even if I find it unhelpful or which it often can be. But I think you gotta like be open to any sort of knowledge that may come your way. So anyway, that's tangential. Sorry. No, I had Jeff Mason. He, like Moritz said, he was kind of the catalyst for this telling of the story. So it became very important for me to get a hold of him. We started talking right after it was cast. We had a lot of conversations. His perspective was so vivid and so clear. It really helped me find a starting point in the telling of the story. And I never felt obviously beholden to imitate him or offer that kind of characterization, because none of you, no one here, most people don't know what Jeff Mason looks like or sounds like. So that was freeing in a way, but there were qualities that he has that I did want to emulate, in particular his sense of humor, his sense of playfulness, his sense of innovation. This is something, if you talk to his colleagues, you hear about constantly. And then beyond that, he was able to provide access for me and Tim to get into control booths, primarily at CBS Sunday Football and ESPN at Madison Square Garden basketball games. And that became, it was clear that was going to be very important.
Yeah.
That language of calling a show is very unique. I've been comparing it to learning an instrument, or Tim has called it conducting in a way. But it's so unique, it's so specific, that if we didn't really capture that as authentically as possible, it would have, I think the movie would have really fallen flat.
Leonie, I would love to hear your first thoughts of the approach that you're all going to take in telling the stories, but because it really feels like a true acting ensemble, the way you all feed off each other and elevate each other.
Well, my first reaction to when my agent said, "I will send you a script," it's about week 72. My first reaction was, "But this has been done." But then she said she promised it was going to be a thrilling read, and that's what it was, because it's not. It's about a group of journalists trying to figure out how to report on breaking news like this for the first time with 900 million people watching live. And I think that's really interesting. And I think all the questions that are, or most of the questions that were raised that day have remained the same today. And I thought the script was well written. It was a fun character, and I wanted to be a part of it. Yeah.
So Ben, I'd love to hear, so once Peter Sarsgaard, obviously, rounding out the main, Fab Four of the cast here, when you all got together, for a rehearsal or a table read, what were some of the moments that came out of that wound up making it into the finished film?
Well, the table read, John had COVID. So we went into the room.
It wasn't much of a table read.
Well, yeah, it was. I mean,
You weren't there.
I was there. I got there the night.
Leonie wasn't in the table read.
Leonie wasn't there. So just the table read was probably not a great pre-cut. It wasn't a good. It didn't augur well.
I was chewing a
John was on the screen, right?
Because I was locked in an apartment. I couldn't, it was still COVID. I couldn't leave. I was sucking on a cough drop, and then Tim at the end goes, "Is that going to be a choice?" And I was like, "No, man, my voice is sucking on a cough drop."
That's right.
Suck on a cough drop for 90 minutes.
Yeah. So but in a funny way, I think that kind of is a little bit indicative of what it was like. We got on very well, in spite of, or perhaps helped by the level of sort of claustrophobic proximity that we had. You either sink or swim, and I think we got on, and Tim steered the ship well. And now Peter Sarsgaard's not here, we can say he was a very generous number one on the call sheet, wasn't he? He was a team player. As he said, it was like there wasn't anyone who was number one on the call sheet, which only the person who's number one on the call sheet can say. It was a real ensemble, and I think that was true to every actor that you see on screen, every background artist. And again, this was something that these guys wanted, right? They cast some real American TV guys, right?
Yeah, Tim, he drew a lot of inspiration from Greengrass's United 93, where Paul cast real flight controllers, right, to sit in that room. So Tim, in his preparation and his research, was going into these control rooms in Munich, and he would come across some faces and be like, "Hey, would you like to be a background actor?" And he would come across Americans who were living in Munich, who he saw, so he tried to populate it with people who had those skills in some way, and it really helped us too, because the people we have all around us, those background actors, they were as much a part of the ensemble as every principal, because they were there every day with us, so they became part of the family. They were always playing in this crazy style of shooting, not knowing if you're on camera or not. They were just as alive and present as any other actor was on that set.
To the point you just made, Leonie, about how when I sort of brought the name up of the film over these last few months, and they go, "Oh, hasn't that been done?" And I'm like, "No, not with this." And this is a completely different story because it's focusing on the news, like All the President's Men, or the Insider is another one, the paper. So I'm just curious, Moritz, when you were working on the story, writing the screenplay with Tim, what kind of discoveries did you make that informed the direction you were going to go with the film?
Well, I have to bring up Jeffrey again because we were asking him what questions did rise that day, all the ethical questions, and he said, no. At first, we just tried to make it happen, just to make it work, and then we had to answer those questions on the fly. And this was really something we were intrigued about because they simply didn't have time that day, and felt like his stories felt like there was a kind of a rush that day, and we tried to get that rush and that nail-biting ticking clock on the page.
It's not just the four of you; it's the five of you. Because Jim McKay is very, very much part of this cast. So, Philip, I'm really curious, was it always the plan to use his footage, or was there ever talk that you would cast an actor to play him, for the whole thing, or even part of it, or none of it?
It was always the plan, but it was not so easy to get hands on the footage. So it was actually just shortly before we started the shooting, we got hands on the footage, and that was quite a huge challenge for the entire team, because we, at a certain point, we decided, okay, now we need a backup plan, and we need to actually talk about casting someone for Jim McKay, and that would have been a different movie, a totally different movie. So Tim was really pushing hard on us, and we tried our best, and Moritz and Tim, they really had to change the script last minute, because we got the tapes and everything very, very last minute. There's even a scene in the movie that came into the script, I think, a few days, or just a day before we started shooting.
The scene where Jim McKay is interviewing Tobias Sokolsky, and they're losing the satellite, and Tim and I, we saw that snippet for the first time 5 days before shooting, and then we thought, okay, this has to go into the script, and luckily we had very cool producers who said, okay, go with it, because we had to change the entire script one more time on the last weekend. So, but it was worth it to wait for this material, because it's kind of the DNA that leads us through the story.
I think we have to acknowledge a big thank you to Sean McManus. So Sean McManus is a former head of CBS Sports and CBS News, which is a position that Rune Arledge had at ABC. Not many people have been the heads of news and sports, and Rune was the first to do that. Sean McManus, who's Jim McKay's son, did the same thing. And also he was there during this. He was in that room on that day. And Sean McManus, because of his connections and how revered him and Jeff Mason were, they were able to make calls to Disney and Bob Iger and get some strings pulled to free up that footage, which really made our jobs so much easier. And I mean, like you said, the fifth Beatle, if you want. it was McKay, and playing off of him, it was surreal, but it was really fun. Yeah.
So you shot the movie chronologically. I think Tim said at one of the last screenings I did with him. Leonie, how does shooting a movie chronologically actually help an actor?
Okay, I don't know if it's a jet lag, but did we shoot chronologically?
We didn't.
Oh, you didn't shoot
Tim is a liar.
Every film
Sorry.
we go and we say, okay, let's shoot it chronologically, and it never works out.
The source goes full.
Yeah.
The source goes.
Peter was shooting Presumed Innocent at the time, so we had to shoot him out.
Yeah.
So we shot his stuff chronologically,
Yeah.
but not ours.
Well, it feels like.
Yeah.
But regardless, like it was still an enclosed set. It was a working set using the modern technology of 1972. So how did that also help? All of you to like be in a. It worked.
Oh, it's amazing. It's terrifying. I was really happy that I didn't have to press any buttons, because when you have to press buttons, stuff actually happened. So I was grateful that most of the time I just stood there and said words. But it was amazing. Julian Wagner, our production designer, and his team got all these machines from very rather strange people who collect them, and got them working. And then went into the ins and outs of it was this 1972 or 73, and then took a machine out again because that one was actually from 1973. But if you step on a set like that as an actor, a lot of the work has already been done for you, because it lends itself so well to the story. Yeah.
Can you talk then about what made Tim just a perfect director for this? What makes Tim a great actor's director?
He's obsessed.
Yeah, I mean, just that. A good actor's director can take many forms. There can be somebody who's really young, an actor, for example, but Tim is a good actor's director in that he is tireless. Everybody flags at some point in a day. Just when you're shooting, it's just the way it goes. You can't sprint all day. He can. He got COVID in the shoot, and he was directing by iPad, which was kind of fun actually, because you could drift out of frame, pretending you were listening, and then just pop back in. You could have a little break. But even with COVID and even under duress, he was still focused and still.
Yeah.
So that's how.
I will say it didn't work very well.
Yeah.
We shut down. We tried it for a day, and then we were like, "This isn't really working." So we did pause for a couple days until he recovered. Him being a plaster to C-stand on an iPad and being left in the hallway was made. Although he was eager to do it, it didn't quite work.
Yeah. He was also kind of sick.
He was
The
very.
reason is he's like his way of directing movies is very physical, and I think also it's always he always says it's very important to him to create a physical experience also for the audience, like to really feel it, and so that was the worst case scenario, to put him on an iPad.
But I will say, like sometimes we talk about that tenacity. You might think that it's controlling, but oddly enough, he was very collaborative with actors, especially when we really hit roadblocks. There were multiple scenes in this film, I think some of the best scenes in this film, that were totally rearranged on the day. One with us at the very end.
Yeah.
And he was willing,
Yep.
even with the time crunch, even knowing the clock is running and you have to make your day, he would take the time to talk to us, to find the right language, to make it as honest and authentic as possible. And sometimes when you have directors who come from a very visual and technical standpoint, that's impossible for them to do. But he's capable of doing that.
Yeah.
And he does make sure that everyone's being heard, and I think that makes also, because you asked what makes him a great actor's director, is he makes sure that everyone feels seen, and that's special.
And that has to go through to the producers and writers as well. That has to be everybody, has to.
So it was a great experience because Moritz was on set the entire time, and then John Palmer, our other producer, is also there.
Moritz has a second director credit, I believe, in this, right?
I just did the buttons. Just if there's a finger on a button and nothing else, then
That's yours.
I don't.
Hey, and those are some beautiful button shots.
Well, Moritz's last question, what do you hope people take away from the film? I mean, there's so much to gain from it. I mean, there's so much I didn't know. I didn't realize 900 million people watched around the world. I didn't know about the ABC parent company wanting to take it away from ABC Sports. I didn't realize that they thought the hostages were alive until they found out that they weren't. A lot to the film. What do you hope people take away?
Well, I hope on the one side, I hope that people really had the experience of sitting in that room that day, like feeling the pressure, the time pressure. Sometimes like it's a time window of a couple of seconds where they had to make a decision. So what does it really feel like to call a show like that? And they did it for the first time. And on the other hand, what I took away from it is that those questions, the ethical questions, were kind of strictly journalistic questions back then. But now with like a smartphone in our pocket and social media, it's kind of questions that are questions for everybody. So yeah, I think if people just like reflect on their own, and certainly I did that, on their own like news, how we consume news, that would be great, yeah.
So, two things. If you could stay seated while everybody exits, that would really help us out a lot. Second, more importantly, so now that you've seen the film, and it is absolutely one of the very, very best movies of 2024. So please spread the word. And how do you spread the word? Of course, you go on social media. So, if you're using Instagram, go for it. If you're using Facebook, if you're still using X, knock yourself out. Spread the word about September 5. Thank you all very, very much.